It was early on a Thursday morning when Peter Brock pulled the Superformance Brock Coupe into the parking lot of a fast food joint in Temecula, California, where we were waiting. As the torch red coupe rumbled slowly to a halt, bystanders were transfixed at the sight. We couldn't help recalling that the Shelby team's response in 1963 to Brock's original drawings was that it was the ugliest car they'd ever seen. Chew carefully as you eat those words, guys. Because Shelby's team doubted the potential of Brock's Cobra Roadster-based exotic coupe with its chopped-off com tail, they left its construction to a small triumvirate of believers. Brock, British driver Ken Miles, and Kiwi mechanic John Olsen were left to put it together for its first race at Daytona in February 1964. In many ways, this new fiberglass replica is a vindication of Peter Brock's original vision. You see, despite the enlarged cockpit dimensions made possible by this latest redesign, the Superformance car is closer in concept to Brock's original than even the first race cars were. From the outset, Brock would have preferred to increase the wheelbase and move the Cobra underfloor frame tubes so the occupants' seats could drop lower into the chassis, but that idea contravened the racing regulations of the time. So the first Daytona coupes were built on AC Cobra chassis with minimal changes to the layout, resulting in cockpits that were fairly confined. That has all changed with this Brock redesign. He moved the floor rails outward, dropping the seats by 4 inches. The wheelbase was stretched by 3 inches, and the height and width of the car were increased proportionally. Windshield rake and curvature were changed to take advantage of modern glass, and the result is a shape that is arguably better proportioned than the aluminum-skinned originals. Some of those were built to the wrong dimensions anyway, when Italian coach builders at Carrozzeria Gran Sport believed they were correcting a design error, inadvertently making enough space for a lanky Dan Gurney to squeeze behind the wheel. There's room for Gurney in this new Brock coupe, too, that's for sure. If this 6'5" tester can slip into the driver's seat with a broken left ankle, don't ask, then almost anyone can. Legroom is plentiful, and the wheel is at a comfortable reach and angle. The passenger footwell is somewhat abbreviated by the air conditioning system housed up front but is ameliorated by a reasonable dashboard height that allows one's knees to bend a little before they contact the lower edges. Looking around when seated in this car, one sees beautifully executed interior panels and materials. Brock says the interior design is period, but not race car fashion. The dash is coated with a vinyl skin and capped with a suede-like material. The headliner is thick and plush, and the craftsmanship throughout the car redefines the term kit car. To fully appreciate it, says Brock, you have to meet the owner of High Tech Industries, which owns the old AC cars patents and builds the rolling chassis in Port Elizabeth, South Africa. His name is Jim Price, and when he first approached Peter Brock to do a redesign of the Daytona coupe, Brock turned him down, not wanting to be part of a kit car reincarnation. Price responded by saying he wouldn't do the car without Brock's participation. He'd only do it if they could do it right, he said, and that got Brock's attention. When Brock insisted on using Bob Nextad, the original chassis designer for the Cobra 427, Price didn't quibble, even though that meant contracting Roush Industries, where Nextad was working, at a cost of some $140,000 for the job. Nextad's ambitions with the 427 project had also been thwarted when his extended wheelbase design was preempted by AC Cars technicians in Britain, who prematurely cut frame tubes to the usual size. This new chassis is a tubular mild steel space frame with double control arms up front and upper A-arms with lower links in the rear, and its rigidity is claimed to be in the same realm as a C4 Corvette's, at 6,000 pound-feet per degree of deflection. Around this tubular cage is mounted a fiberglass body of exceptional beauty. Jim Price's original plan was to use all carbon fiber bodywork, but the texture printed through too much for his liking, so all road cars are rendered in glass. Track cars may still be ordered in carbon fiber. But what fiberglass it is. Price is clearly a perfectionist. Dead flat and dimensionally spot on, the fiberglass body is a real work of art. Superformance rolling chassis are imported in just that form, complete rollers with all wiring, hydraulic lines, brakes, paint, seats, controls, and mechanicals short of a drivetrain. The local sales organization then provides an owner with a choice of several engines from stock V8s through Roush crate motors, usually mated to $2,000 Tremec 6-speed transmissions. But an owner can specify an automatic if so inclined. Our car was fitted with the Roush 402R, 4402 cubic inch V8, costing $11,600, sucking through a Holley 4-barrel carburetor and exhaling through dual dummy side pipes. The exhaust runs through the side pipes but doesn't exit there, continuing instead to cunningly concealed stub outlets under the tail for quieter operation. Brock's car had a newly revised gearshift linkage that selected gears with a relatively light and mechanical sense. An earlier spec car that turned up at the track, where it was ultimately used for acceleration testing, shifted like a pig. We suggest you insist on the new linkage. The track highlighted some teething problems, with the rear suspension visibly verging on positive camber, thus preventing the 285 cross-section Dunlops from properly contacting the road. The rear end would step out on the skid pad well before the tires began working hard. Fooling with tire pressures helped a little, bumping our lateral acceleration number as high as 0.86 G, but it took a retest in Michigan with a properly sorted car to achieve the 0.91 G you see in these specs. Another problem was unearthed during testing. With a claimed 515 horsepower at 5,500 RPM, the Roush 402R ought to have been capable of quarter-mile times much quicker than the 12.7 seconds at 113 miles per hour we achieved in California. Dusty conditions at the drag strip made launching a delicate balance between bogging and burning and hurt the 0 to 60 mph time. We ran 4.5 seconds. At the Michigan retest, the Coupe ran 4 seconds flat, with a standing quarter time of 12.2 seconds at 119 miles per hour. That's much more like it. When Brock Dyno tested the car following testing on the West Coast, it pulled only 366 horsepower on the dyno, where predictable drivetrain losses from a 515 HP engine should translate to figures in the mid-400s. Brock noted the carburetor was at least 3 jet sizes off. If anyone has forgotten the annoyance of carburetors, let our recent experience be a lesson. Remember, the engine and the transmission are the only non-Superformance components in this performance equation. Any owner who ensures that his or her crate motor is tuned and dynoed to the correct spec will enjoy a blazingly fast coupe with head-turning good looks and the durability that modern materials promise. Despite the authentic looks and traditional space frame construction, the wheels are updated and resized versions of the original units, and the brakes are contemporary Corvette spec items imported from Australia. There is no ABS. What true aficionados will like about the Brock car is its authentic feel. The steering wheel wafts the nose off course with just a little pressure at the rim. The controls all have a distinctly mechanical sense to them, and the exertions of the big V8 drill through the car's solid mounts directly to the driver's nervous system. Although the car isn't particularly hard riding, it is firm and direct, and full throttle brings an awesome sound into the cockpit. There was no radio in either of the cars we drove, nor was one needed. In fact, road roar and fairly high wind noise generated by the jutting air intakes at the cowl and B-pillars made cell phone conversation almost impossible, even though normal conversational levels were adequate on our long freeway trip. Obviously, this isn't about isolation. This is an unadulterated classic experience, and at about $63,800 for a rolling chassis, it isn't even that expensive. With Superformance as the spiritual successor to AC cars and Brock the original designer, the Brock Coupe is more a classic mark in the making than a mere kid car. As an expatriate South African, that makes me feel kind of proud.